Broad topics, broad minds, broad hosts, but not just for broads. This is Broadscast with Kim Goldman and Jackie McDougall.
Good morning.
Hi.
Welcome to Broadscast, Kim Goldman.
I'm glad I could be here, Jackie McDougall.
Why? I'm glad you could be here too. Hey, you're in 2020 tonight.
Hey, yeah, look at that. Reminder. Yeah.
The funny thing is, you'll probably get maybe a couple more people to watch that than listen to the show. Maybe. I'm not really sure.
I don't know.
You've had a huge week. You have a new book out. You were in New York with the Pope.
Yeah, me and the Pope were tight.
And you were preempted a lot. So given that theme, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Jarrett Hill is in the hizzy.
Oh my gosh. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I said hizzy. It's like 1999. And you have to make sure that you speak directly into, they always say, hug the mic, because we back up a lot and then you can't hear us.
Okay.
Turns into a different kind of show in about an hour.
So Jarrett is a podcaster, a news dude.
I think that's what my business card
A Jarrett of all
news dude.
news
Jarrett
dude.
of all trades. And we're happy to have you. You've actually phoned in a couple times.
Yeah, I think I've been on 2 or 3 times, oftentimes about like politics and
And now
I didn't realize how freckly you were.
Yeah. I get that a lot.
I don't get that over the phone. I don't really feel
You
that.
can't hear them. They're not as loud as you think. So, yeah.
But we're happy to have you in the studio.
I'm excited to be
The
here.
energy is so much better when people are in the studio.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so the Pope, you know, he's in town.
I hadn't heard.
You hadn't?
I was busy watching Kim on everything. I don't know.
You were watching Kim be preempted everywhere.
Exactly.
Kim's like, been waiting for this book. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go back and forth a lot. This book, which is like high profile cases, they all came to Kim and told their stories in a way no one's ever heard. And Kim keeps getting preempted by the Pope.
We got to get him
And Trump.
Right. Well,
Trumped by the
One
Pope.
interview told me that if I could work Trump into my talk, that they would have me on. And so I'm like, well, maybe I should have like a little thing behiund my head that I squeeze, and he just pops up behind me. Or
that will work.
Yeah.
That will work.
Or say that you had an affair with him or something.
Oh, God.
Oh, yikes.
No.
So let's
I
go
have
back to
my
the Pope.
limits. Yeah.
So
This is a running theme.
what an interesting visit.
For sure.
He has
Yeah.
more people are vocal. I grew up Catholic. I'm one of 13 kids, Irish Catholic, Massachusetts.
One of 13?
You didn't know this?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so Irish Catholic. So, I'm very familiar with the Pope. My stepmother, or my mother, since I was 4 years old, was a nun before she married my dad.
So the Pope really had influence on her, huh?
Right.
That she left the nunnery.
She's like reformed nut,
Well,
apparently.
maybe if this Pope were here, she would have stayed. But, so I'm no stranger to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a Pope more vocal and really getting everybody, not just Catholics, talking.
Yeah.
But in a strange way, conservatives who normally would be like using him as on their platform are actually turning against him.
Well, that's what's been interesting is he's been so beloved. Like everyone seems to have responded to him so well, and he's literally reaching out and touching the people. And then you look at conservatives and Republicans, and they are so anti everything that he has to say. And he's being a politician, and he's like, no, I'm talking about what's in the Bible. I don't know if you guys heard, but I'm kind of the Pope. Like
Right.
that's a little bit of what I do is I talk about what's in the book. And like, it's really fascinating to see like a party that is so, Christian focused and Bible based. And we know we're really advocating for God. But then the Pope comes and says, well, you do realize that this is what we preach. And it's kind of antithetical to what you're doing.
But do you think that it's appropriate that the Pope came and spoke to members of Congress when we're supposed to be a country that's not supposed to be operating by the voice of God and
I actually
religion?
think that's a really fair point. We are not supposed to be. We are a nation of religions. We're not a religious nation. Like we have all kinds of different religions. So it's like, are we going to have this from other like major religious figures? Heck no.
Well, I'm just wondering why it took so long, for the Pope to come. Ever. He's never appeared.
Well, he's only been the Pope for a couple of years.
You mean a Pope?
A Pope.
A
Pope. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never happened before.
Yeah, they said John Boehner's been trying to get this to happen for like 20 years.
Wait, another Pope? I thought there was a visit from John Paul or something years ago.
I feel like John Paul came, but I don't know if he addressed Congress.
Yeah.
Is that what, that's what you
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
Sorry.
But at the same time, if the Dalai Lama came and wanted to address Congress, like,
I don't think people would be okay with that.
really?
Well, because we have this whole
but
idea.
he's not. voting or something. Like
we have this whole idea of religious freedom in America, but it's only if you're Christian. Like,
right.
Religious freedom is reserved for Christians in America. And like, as a person that doesn't identify as Christian anymore, but I still believe in God and hold some of those Christian beliefs, like, we really kind of only look at religious freedom from the perspective of being a Christian or, you know, a Catholic or Baptist or whatever that denomination is.
Right.
But like, if you're Muslim, we're not here for that.
Right.
Or if you're Hindu or if you're
Jewish,
an atheist,
yeah.
like, no.
Please, when we live in a country where people say, talk American.
Talk America. Yeah, it's like...
Like it's a language.
Seriously? Like, yeah, that's okay, you know? So yeah, it's...
But at the same time,
Christians.
Catholicism and Christianity are not, you know, the same, one and the same.
Right.
Because I always said, you know, growing up Catholic, you know, Christians would go into church and be like, I'm going to be the best version of myself and all, you know, and Catholics would be like, I'm just going to be sorry when I'm not. You know, it's like we'd be walking out of church and talking about the, you know, who's going to New Hampshire to pick up the beer because they didn't sell it in Massachusetts and, you know, for the football game. Like, I mean, it's
maybe Catholicism.
I feel like Catholicism, maybe that's the way to go.
Right?
No, but I mean, and you know, I'm not speaking for all Catholics. I'm just, I feel like Catholicism, in a way, is also not unlike Judaism in that there's a lot of tradition involved, and it's not just the religion and the beliefs, because not everybody believes every single thing that is said in the church that they belong to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But when you think about the Pope coming to Congress and all the things that he said, and people were cheering, and you know, I mean, I was listening to some member of Congress say that they were going to they weren't going to stand up or sit down, they weren't going to cheer, and they found themselves so moved. And I kept thinking, why? Like, now are we all going to be dictated to lead based on what the Pope said? Because there's lots of things that he said that I don't agree with, and just because he's
what
the
did
Pope,
he say that you don't agree with?
I don't support the abolishment of death penalty. I'm a pro-choicer. I have strong feelings about immigration. I mean, there are things that I believe as a Jewish person, a Democrat, whatever I want to cite myself as, that I don't necessarily think that. I don't want the Pope dictating how the Congress is going to be ruling. And I was unclear.
But do you feel like he's dictating, or he's just expressing his?
Well, I don't know, because there's people on both sides of the aisle that were like, okay, he's validated our mission.
He's like the ultimate lobbyist.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right, but on what
God's
authority?
lobbyist.
But that's my point. That's not what our country is supposed to be ruled by. And so when he came to Congress and people were motivated by what he was saying and it's going to further their mission, I'm like, what?
But I feel like he had the opportunity to bring views together. Because I think
they walked away. They all talked. They walked away from that session, all going back to exactly what they.
Of course they did.
I mean, and then Boehner resigned. Like, how unified is that?
This is kind of what we do every time we have a joint session of Congress. Like, we always talk about how do we come together and blah 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 blah. And we haven't done that since, you know, God only knows when. No pun with God intended.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to me a few things. Number one, everyone in Congress had been asked not to applaud and all that, not to reach out to him when he's walking down the aisle, all that kind of stuff. Don't do that while he's speaking. Let him speak and let him move.
Right.
And that obviously didn't happen. And I also, like, John Boehner sitting there crying. Like, I mean, he cries all the time.
He's like Oprah, like,
right,
no eye
right.
contact.
He's always having a moment. But like, John Boehner was obviously really emotionally moved by what happened there. And I can guess that Boehner had made the decision that he was going to resign before yesterday. But I can't imagine that sitting there with the Pope telling him things that were pretty, you know, anti to what a lot of what the Republicans do, that probably had an impact on him as well.
Right.
But, you know, we aren't a nation that's supposed to be led by religion. However, our Congress does not look anything like America. Congress is, I think, 90 or 95% white Christian men.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys heard, but America is not 95% white Christian men. You know what I mean?
Feels like it.
Well, sometimes, right. I mean, if we look at who's dominating everything, but it's Congress is that's a major problem of mine. I've been trying to write a piece for a long time called "How Do We Recall a Congress?" which constitutionally we cannot. But I mean, it's so interesting to look at Congress and the way that they don't move, how low their approval ratings are, and how much they don't represent America.
Right.
It's really troubling, actually.
Well, I'm not anti-Pope. I was watching. I was moved by the reaction to people. Before I was leaving my hotel room in New York, there was the image of him walking down and shaking all the kids' hands and hugging, and the selfies that he was taking, and the pure joy. And these kids were saying that he loves us all, whatever your background is, whatever your religion is, that's what he's teaching us. And for me to see that, a young person recognize that that's what his message is was the most important to me. But
Right.
I loved the reaction and how hip and relevant and relatable he is as a pope, that he's not polarizing. And I think from a global standpoint, I love that. But I just mixing politics and religion is always like for me.
I feel like if I grew up Catholic with this pope and these are the messages that I learned, that I would probably still be, identify myself as Catholic. I just, to grow up and be like, you do this, you're going to hell. This, you're going to hell. This, I just feel like, unless I'm sorry, but it's just, I like his open.
And I love how humble he is. He doesn't take the limos. He drives the little
He's in a
clown Fiat.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for like 15 more popes to come out of the Fiat behind him. But just that he doesn't stay
Oh my
in the
God,
Pope's
I think
castle.
that's a scene from Nonsense or something.
Or at least a Fiat commercial. That'd be awesome.
Seriously.
I do find it, I do find the Pope very, very interesting. And I think even whether you're, Republican, Democrat, religious or not, I think there is something appealing about a figure that's not so polarizing.
Yeah.
Because every politician, every leader is so polarizing. I mean, either Sarah Palin or Barack Obama or whoever it is,
Right.
everyone is so polar opposites, and it's about coming together. And I think
his
that's
message,
appealing.
exactly. His message is, he's not totally doing a 180 on things that the Catholic Church believes. He's just open to discussing and open to, having dialogue and having acceptance.
Well, he's also recognizing the sign of our current state of affairs.
Right.
I mean, it's not old and antiquated like it was, way back in whatever decade, but like he's recognizing where we are at and where we are at as a people. And I think that, that's something that I personally love and admire.
Well, and I also, I've been watching this Pope, so fascinated by his embracing of basically every community and thinking, how does the Catholic Church really feel about him, like inside the Vatican?
Right.
But then I thought about this yesterday, and I thought, they did elect him. Like, they chose him, you know what I mean? And he's going to be difficult for a pope to come behind him and want to be in a limo.
Well, and I was
thinking,
thinking that too, that it's not just the pope; it was the church that opted to put him in place. So obviously, they're recognizing that there needs to be some healing and some connectedness. And so, while I'm not taking away any of his ability to move mountains, but the church did that.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
But I hope this opens minds to the fact that, the law and politics and all that and religion are, there should be that separation of church and state, but at the same time, you can still have your beliefs and they should be protected, not from discrimination, but if, someone doesn't think that gay marriage is okay, that's their right to believe that. However, it's not their right to then act on that and block that. And I've never said this, take abortion, for example. Can I even talk about that on the air? I don't, you know what? I grew I don't find it to be a valid source of, contraception or,
a valid option.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, there are extenuating circumstances, but for me personally, in my moral compass, I just think it's wrong. Mm-hmm. However, I don't believe in fighting for people's rights where it could cause so much chaos and so many extra problems in the world.
Right,
so
but
I
it's
think
legal. So the fact that people are trying to condemn it, I get it. Like, you're entitled to your opinion, but it's legal. Same thing with gay marriage. You can have your opinion, but it's legal.
And that's my point, is that we should still respect people's personal beliefs and that they're not going to be the same. Because, we can all sit here and say, oh, well, we're so liberal and this and that. And that person's closed mind. They're against gay marriage and that's just their feeling or their belief. They should be able to have that belief.
Right.
They should not be able to go and block somebody like that Kim, Davis, right?
Oh gosh,
not you, Kim.
Yeah.
No, but she was not doing her job. She should be fired.
Well, that brings me to, that is a perfect transition into what I was just thinking about. So one of my favorite memes that I've seen around Kim Davis has been like, Kim Davis's ideology is very much so like, you can't have a donut because I'm on a diet, right? And so it's like, I believe everyone has the right to their opinion. And to
yeah,
feel
but if
however they
I'm
want
on
to
a
feel.
diet, you really can't have a donut.
At least not in front of me, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, it's one of those things where, just because you don't like gay marriage, like, then don't get gay married.
Right.
But don't take it away from me.
Right.
So I feel like we all have these ideas and feelings about what's right and what's wrong. But when
if I'm a vegetarian, I'm not going to go work at the steakhouse and deliver you
I was going
meat.
to say, if I'm a vegan, like, I don't
condemn you for ordering it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean,
Refuse.
you can believe whatever you want to believe, but like, you shouldn't be trying to impose your beliefs on me.
Right.
And a friend of mine always says, like, your rights should go as far as they can until they begin to infringe upon someone else's. Mm-hmm. And so, once my rights, once my arm kind of stretches into your bubble of what you can and can't do, that becomes a problem to me, you know, personally. I don't, as far as like abortion is concerned, I feel like it's so interesting the way that we handle abortion in this country and like women's health and all that kind of stuff. Like I remember recently seeing a panel in Congress of like talking about women's health and all that kind of stuff. And it's a panel of all men. That there's no woman in the conversation. And we're talking about what women need, what women should be doing, what women should do with their bodies. And that's always been a problem to me. And as far as abortion is concerned, I always say I'm pro-life and pro-choice. Like I don't think anyone's excited about getting an abortion, but at the same time, I don't think I should be telling you whether or not you can.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I think our little radio station here is going to
they're like, whoa, hey
lose
guys.
their heads.
Simmer down.
But you know who's
deep. What?
Right. You know who's even getting involved in this like women's body and all that is Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill Nye. How can you not do
Dora
that?
the Explorer in my head. You guys are going that one. I'm the map. I don't know why.
No, it's
so
a fantastic thing.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah,
Jarrett.
he has a video on Facebook right now. If you go on Facebook, it's one of the
we'll
trending
put it on
videos.
our broadscast.com.
And it'll be on
page.
broadscast.com. He's talking about, like, he says things being from a fact-based perspective. And he's like, I know that things being fact-based is actually controversial right now, which I don't understand. But he's like,
I don't believe in science.
Exactly. Science is not a real thing. But, abstinence-only education, it's clearly not effective because, the pregnancy rates of teens is clearly, it's not impacted by it. So he's talking about the way that we address contraception and all these different things. And he's like, I'm just being objective. Like, look at the numbers. Look at, the facts. And the way that we're handling this in this country is not effective. And we've got to do better about it. So it's him talking about we need to stop telling women what to do with their bodies.
Well, but I also think going along with Bill Nye, in general, talking
words
about,
you never thought you'd say.
No, but we were talking about this off radio. The work that I do with teens, there's so many kids that are so ill prepared to become young adults and sexually active kids, and to know how to deal with their bodies, both emotionally and physically. That to not give kids and teens or young adults or whomever, even older adults have no idea what to do with their bodies, to give them the education so they make good, healthy choices. Again, going along with abortion, we're not giving a child a condom at 10 and going, here you go.
Hey,
and like leading like a bread, a trail of crumbs to go knock boots, but it's like their bodies are changing.
Repulsed by that.
She
Even.
just said knock boots.
My kid turned 12 today, right? We've been talking.
I know. Happy birthday, Sam.
Happy birthday.
Oh, weird time to say it.
No, but,
okay, go on.
But it's reality because his body's changing. He's curiosity. He notices boobs. Like things are happening.
My second son came out of the womb noticing boobs.
But
he was like, I get to eat off those?
I'm not going to teach my kid how to have sex, but I'm certainly going to have an open dialogue with him that should he find himself in a situation where he's in love or whatever he's feeling and he's making a conscious choice, I would want him to at least be armed with some healthy decision making.
Can you imagine? I mean, he's 12 years old. Can you imagine telling him, now or nowish, like these are some of the things that you will feel or potentially feel as you get older, age appropriate as you.
We've been talking about it for years.
And then he starts to feel them. Imagine the feeling of acceptance
and preparedness
and not I mean, how many of us went through puberty and we were like, what the what? Like, I mean, I still haven't had the sex talk with my mother. So, I'm still
honestly,
a little shaky on the whole thing.
I don't remember that I ever did either, but when I decided I wanted to lose my virginity, I had an opportunity to talk to my father about it, and that's where I went before I made the decision.
Which is amazing.
But I don't I don't
Fred.
remember my dad ever telling me how it worked, but he created an environment where I wasn't afraid to have a discussion about it. I ended up waiting a full year after that initial discussion because I emotionally didn't think I was ready. But the opportunity to talk about it was what. And he didn't say, okay, you want to go do it. Here's how. We had open dialogue.
Gross.
And he allowed me to ask questions and to be
Right.
curious about it, because
And to
it's
not feel like
happening-
a freak,
it's
because when
happening
we
whether
feel-
I want it to or not, like you said, Jared, you can't pause puberty.
Yeah. Well, and I know as
Yeah.
like a
And
young,
unfortunately, with all the food that they're eating and the hormones and stuff,
They're
it's actually
growing up a lot
accelerating.
faster. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's a whole other topic, but maybe that's one of the reasons that kids are younger and younger,
Yeah, well, and I mean, as a gay man, as a teen, like there were so many questions, like obviously all the questions that kids have about sex and their bodies and what's happening, but then the element of like, I feel like something's different here, and I don't know what to do with that. And I'm hearing that it's something bad, so let me keep that to myself.
Right.
And so we don't want to talk, even just from a curriculum standpoint in education, like we don't want to talk to kids about anything that happens in their bathing suit areas, as we were saying off air. But like, we want to tell them about their brain and their foot and their this and that. But like anything in the middle, no, we're not talking about that.
Right.
And then we never teach kids about relationships, how they're going to feel, how they should kind of navigate their feelings and all that kind of stuff, and what's happening in their brain and their chemical,
and how that impacts
all
the
that
stuff
kind
in the
of
southern region.
Exactly, and how all those things are connected.
Yeah, well, that's a good time to go to break.
Wow.
When we come back, we still have some behind the scenes from Kim's week on
Did you hear the
Today
Pope was
Show
here?
and
I don't know
Kris
if you heard
Jenner.
the
Oh, the
Pope.
Pope. Oh, right. There's that too. We'll be right back. When Broadscast was looking to relaunch our website, we knew exactly who to call. The team at Stark Social Media.
At Stark Social, they understand the importance of a strong online presence.
From marketing and branding, web design, and social media, the in-house team listens to their clients' needs and budget and responds with a tailor-made plan for your small business, nonprofit, or startup.
Stark Social's philosophy is simple: do good work. And they live by that philosophy every day.
Stand out from the competition and contact Stark Social Media today at starksocial.com.
You're listening to Broadscast with Kim Goldman and Jackie McDougall. Two broads with faces made for radio.
Your seat, Jackie McDougall.
I'm back in my
She's trying
seat.
to break free from the room.
From the womb?
From the room. Yeah.
I was trying to break free because Kyle, our fabulous producer op dude, was taking a picture of us. Anyway.
That's the difference between men and women. Kyle just wants to post it immediately. The women are like, photo approval, please.
I know. I was like, let me see that photo. It's awkward. My face is very puffy today. Okay.
You look great.
So, see,
All right,
why.
people, it's about me. Seriously, like, really? My God.
We keep preempting Kim. All right, so here's the deal. Kim was in New York this week on the Today Show, on Meredith Vieira
Like
show.
on every show.
Her new book called Media Circus is, Kim, why don't you tell the world listening
About the
Oh
Pope.
my God, I have the feeling divided.
about the Pope?
Media Circus, look at a private tragedy in the public eye is a collective look inside the lives of 10 families that have been featured in high-profile cases over the last, couple of decades, but dating back to the 60s. And I had the good fortune to interview them about what their experience has been like trying to grieve publicly with the media completely immersed in their lives and following them and watching every move they make. And then, of course, the introduction of the internet and social media, and then how connected people in the community feel towards families that they see on television or in the news, and how polarizing that can be, and how, in that same vein, how supportive and inclusive that can feel. Mm-hmm. But just really each chapter tells a different story from all these families. And I was hoping to kind of paint a picture of what it was like back in the 60s to present day.
Yeah, I mean, from like the Manson, from Sharon Tate's family.
Yeah, all the way through Eric Garner.
Eric Garner, which was so recent.
Right.
And then, you have the Aurora shooting.
Yeah, Aurora shooting, Newtown shooting.
The Sandy Hook. Yeah.
Sandy Hook, thank you. We have Skylar Neese, who her two best friends brutally, as if there's another word, but killed her and left her to die in the woods, and they thought she was just missing. That was trial by Twitter, but people might know that. We have Matthew Shepard. It was the first gay crime. We did Judy Shepard. We did Terry Fassbender, which was a story that those of us in the room are too young to know about, but her whole family was killed on the Bluebell, and she was lost at sea for 4 days.
That story
she was the sole
is just
survivor.
unbelievable.
And she was featured on the cover of Life magazine, because Life magazine used to be the it publication back in the day, and she didn't tell her story for 50 years. And so we tried to talk about what it was like to be completely shielded and
But her family, she was on a boat, and her whole family was killed, and she was left on that boat.
Yeah, she was left to die. The captain, the captain who was the killer, the boat was sinking, and he opted to save himself and thought she would go down with the ship, and she ended up floating along in the sea for 4 days.
Goodness.
So that's pretty. I mean, we just who am I missing? We did the Amish school shooting. We did the DC sniper's ex-wife.
She's amazing too.
Yeah. So I felt really fortunate that all these people let me into their life. Colleen Campbell. I can't believe I'm forgetting Colleen, whose brother was Mickey Thompson, who's a famous NASCAR race driver. And I was so humbled by the opportunity to tell their stories. So.
Well, I think that your perspective and watching these interviews, I love you as my friend, but like you were so graceful and you were so, eloquent and well-spoken, and you take such responsibility and care with their stories that I can't imagine anybody else telling them the way you do.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, I think, part of what our connection is, unfortunately, to people that have lost, interestingly enough, today is also National Remembrance Day of Murder Victims. So it's a good day to be talking about this in honor of people that have been touched by violent crime. We get it. And there's an understanding that you don't have to say a lot to just understand that what someone feels. But in these conversations, I was able to ask questions that, quite frankly, the media didn't ask because they didn't care. The media is not going to ask, how did it feel when we, put up cameras across the street from your private funeral and, took pictures of you in your vulnerable moments? How did it feel when we disguised ourselves as doctors to get into the hotel room to get pictures of your loved one in a coma? Like, how did that feel? Like, the media is not going to ask that. And so when I was able to talk to these families, what insight they shed, I was blown away. So, I'm very, I feel grateful. I'm not dismissing the fact that my experience allowed me to have that kind of access. And so, trying to do something good with it.
So when I got here, I was saying to you guys, I was like, I have a million questions.
Now you have 2 million,
and now I have maybe 2.5. Because
I just want to talk about the Pope.
But the thing is, but you'll go on shows, and I think Savannah on the Today Show. She did a good job with talking about the book. Yeah. But then you went on Meredith Vieira, and hey, I work in daytime television. I know how it has to be produced. They sensationalize things, but it was all about the fact that next week is the 20th anniversary of the acquittal,
right?
And so you were on with one of the jurors, but that's not how it was supposed to go. I like that we get the behind the scenes. Who were you supposed to be on Meredith Vieira with?
I was supposed to be on Meredith's show with another family member from Nicole's family, and at the last minute, I don't know this because I didn't speak to her, but she got cold feet.
And she was literally there in the dressing room next to you.
Yeah, and she got cold feet, and I totally get that. I respect that, and I fortunately didn't have a chance to speak to her when I was there, but it was too much because the thought of putting herself back in 20 years earlier and having to sit in the room with a juror that, gave our killer an acquittal.
So there were two jurors that were also...
jurors, thank you, the 2 jurors, and then one of them suddenly wasn't there either. I'm not exactly sure what happened to that one.
But I mean, you saw when you arrived.
If I just hang on, it's just going to be me here. And then I can take down Meredith too. I can have my own show.
Suddenly it's the Kim Goldman show.
Yeah. But listen,
featuring Jackie McDougal.
Honestly, when the opportunity presented itself, I was not excited. I was wishing and hoping that it would get canceled. It was not what I was looking forward to. The whole way there, I was like, I don't want to do this. And
so why'd you say
apparently
yes?
It appeared that way too when I did the interview. Because I don't have anything to hide. I didn't do anything wrong. I have nothing to be ashamed for. I'm not afraid of my opinion that I've had for all these 20 years that the jury didn't do right by our family. I just was uncomfortable.
Right.
That's not a situation that you often find yourself in. But
I think I fell in love with you a little bit during that interview because, most people just try to hide or sugarcoat or whatever. And you were like, and she's like, how does it feel? And you're like, this is awkward. And we have a link to that interview too, on broadscast.com. But, you're sitting next to a juror who I thought there'd be some revelation, like she changed her mind
well,
or
she supposedly had other things to say and then they didn't come out. So I don't know all of that. But Meredith Vieira was trying to pull some questions or answers out of her that I guess had changed. Yeah, had changed.
Because people don't understand there's a pre-interview. So a producer, talks to that guest and gets all this information.
Right.
And so that way they're able to write the questions for the host.
And quite frankly, go ahead, Jared.
No, I was going to say, as someone who's done millions of those pre-interviews, it's so frustrating to sit there and oh my God, if you don't just ask her this one question, if you don't just say, oh my, are we going to get to, like, that's really frustrating. And then as a guest, you're like, I thought we were going to talk about.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think, and not in defense of Yolanda Crawford, the juror, I think that when the second jury didn't appear, she probably felt really kind of alone
singled out.
And so I don't know
and
what
a
was supposed to
target
happen.
in some ways.
Matter.
Social media didn't exist the way it did.
Right.
Back then it didn't exist like it does now. Like imagine, and then she goes out and says, "I regret." She could get death threats, and I mean, I understand that, but
yeah.
So you sat next to her, and
yeah, but listen, what part of the reason that we did that I opted to do the if I did, oh my God. 3 books ago. The reason that I opted to do the Media Circus book was because when you're involved in high profile cases and stories, you don't really get to opt out of them. So, a lot of media has been asking me, like, what do you feel about the 20th anniversary of the acquittal? I'm like, I don't know, same thing I felt yesterday and 2 years ago and what I'm going to feel next year. Like, it's a day. Like, the fact that you're making an issue about it is why I don't ever get to have a life that's just my own anymore. Because even if I opted not to participate, that show was still happening.
Right.
All of these shows were still happening.
Right.
Listen, I got called to do something yesterday and they refused to mention my book. And they're angry at me for not wanting to do a show that talks about the acquittal. How dare I not participate in their show? And I'm like, but you won't mention the book that I just did. And they said they're offended by my position. I'm like, well,
then why are you asking me to come on?
But my point is
you're supposed to provide yourself, Kim, like for 20, 30, 40, however many years people talk about it, but never have a voice and never have
And so my point is this interview is still happening whether or not I'm choosing to participate.
Wait, I want to know who it's with.
No. So but one of the things that we talk about in the book too is that the families always talk about at what point, if you don't participate, the story happens without you. And that's when the mistruths happen. And that's when it gets beyond what you're comfortable dealing with. And so then you participate and then it spirals. And so when do you pull back?
And this
that's such a fascinating point.
Well, in this day and age, whether you participate or not, like the story is going to be, told 17,000 different ways because of social media, and everyone has a blog, and everyone's, a newscaster, and so I feel like it's a lose-lose situation either way you go, but you can try to control it as much as you can by participating. And
that's what I remember asking you when your last book came out last year, Can't Forgive. I know. Let's see how I'm plugging that.
The All Kim Book Hour.
I know, right? But I had said to you, like, why are you doing this? And you were like, they tell my story whether I participate or not. Why wouldn't I take control of my story? And you're right, because we see the same video over and over with you in court, with crying and the hair flip, which you still do.
I've reduced the number of flips, though. I'm working on that. Yeah.
But so we all, I didn't know you back then. So everybody has their perception. And I love that when we first became friends and I was like, wait, you're not sitting at home crying.
Right.
Like you're funny and self-deprecating and silly and, able
because
to
your
make
life isn't defined by this event, even though you, for a lot of people, are defined by this event. Like your last name will always be attached to that for some people.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Hello.
I don't know how this works. So, no. Okay, so
neither do we.
I've always been fascinated in these kinds of scenarios because, and I'll preface it. I have a good friend who her husband cheated on her, and her whole family was like furious and and was like, leave him. And I called her and I said, I get that it's easy to say you want to leave, but if there is any part of you that wants to stay, I'll understand that as well.
Right.
And I say that to say, I'm curious, being in your position, being so close to this case, if there was any space for you to question what happened, like, because everyone has opinions on what happened that night or whatever, but like, was there any space for you to ever feel like, what if this happened the way that they say it happened or the way that we said it happened? Like, what was the feeling being inside of, this case and your brother's gone and I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's no space now for me to question because I was presented with 1,000-something pieces of evidence that made it very clear to me.
But I mean, then,
well, we've always been very vocal that I didn't make a clear distinction of guilt until the DNA was presented because I couldn't argue away the science because me, like Bill, I'm kind of a science person, so Bill
Kim Goldman, this science.
Gail.
Something.
Yeah. So for me, that there's no other way to explain it. I didn't buy all of the planted, botched, I didn't buy any of that. There was no proof. It was just, it was floated theories that the jury obviously bought into, but I didn't believe in the racist cops. I didn't believe in the conspiracy. There's no reason that hundreds of police officers not knowing where the killer was that would be planting in part of this whole conspiracy. There's no reason. I mean, there were 20 something cops at the scene far before Mark Fuhrman was there who saw the whole entire crime scene, and they didn't know where the killer was. So why would they even take a chance to ruin all of their careers when for years before they had been so supportive of him? They had autographs with him. They let him go when there were issues around domestic violence. I mean, why would all these cops go to such great lengths to frame him? It never made any sense to me. So, and it still doesn't. But there's lots of people that want to believe that, all cops are bad. And I get that. That's just not my experience, in my opinion.
So the other question I really want to ask is, like, this case, as a young black man, like this case, there was all this racial conversation around, guilt or innocence and how black people feel versus white people and all this different stuff. And I was curious, how did you experience that in the time, and how have you experienced it since it's all been?
So I was raised to believe that all people are equal, and I never saw people in terms of the color of their skin ever, which was a real shocker for me when I landed in this, because now suddenly I was supposed to look at people by the color of their skin, and I was very confused by that. And I always said that I wish I wasn't so naive, but I'm glad I was so naive because I didn't live my life feeling judgmental or, an elitist because I was white. Like I never had any of those feelings. But then to be in this situation, I was now suddenly having to question where people were coming from based on the color of their skin, which and I didn't think that was what I was told I was supposed to be doing. And I was upset by that. I think that Johnny Cochran and the defense team did a real number on dividing our country even more than it already was at that time. It was very split, but I got to tell you, I don't think that the polls and the TV screenshots and all that showing blacks versus white was really indicative of how the country as a whole feels. I mean, I can't tell you how many people came up to us that were black and said, we don't think like everybody. We're not like everybody else. Or people that were afraid to talk to us because we must think that all black people thought that he was not guilty. I mean, we're just...
Well, that's what the media does. They're like, the black community, really?
Right. We all voted for Barack Obama. We all...
Right. Yeah. Or the gay community, or the... Like, you cannot take,
we all watch Logo.
Millions of people and and put them all into, like,
one side,
right.
Yeah.
I was listening to someone the other day. I don't even know who she was actually, and she said that our trial was, she's like, "Come on, face it. It was because a black man killed a white woman." I'm like, "What? What's happening? Like, why is that what we're doing now?" Like,
Wait, someone on TV said that?
Yes, and
I love that you pretend that you don't know who that is.
I don't know her name.
Oh.
She was one of the. This is terrible. She's one of the co-people on Meredith show. They all had a roundabout talking about our trial, but I guess before I was there, I don't know who she is, honestly. And she's all about race.
Jarrett's gonna find out.
It was all about race for her, I was like,
well, because what's interesting about that is though, there was just a headline in the past couple of days saying that when a black person is killed, it's always handled differently in the justice system than when a white person is killed. So, like, there is, like, theory around that. But I think this case, while, there will always be debate around how race played into it, I think there were so many elements. There's celebrity, there's murder, there's domestic
money.
violence.
It's the only case like this
so
that we will never have something like this.
Let's hope.
Because it does encompass all of these different areas that make it. I mean, that's what made it so famous and made it so huge, because there were plenty
But I don't think in the beginning that this case was because he was black and that his two victims were white. I don't think that for 1 second that occurred to anybody.
It was because he was who he is.
It wasn't until Mark Fuhrman got caught saying something that became. It was never brought up about a black versus white thing until all of those racial comments appeared out of nowhere.
But what's interesting to me, and I just know this through personal conversations, but you don't hold anybody responsible, Mark Fuhrman, the prosecution, anybody, like, you don't hold any negative feelings toward them for not doing their job.
I think they did their job. I think that the defense did it better in the sense that they were able to convince the jury of their verdict. I mean, I think that Marsha and Chris went above and beyond what was probably done in most cases, and that's really hard to say because there's lots of people that probably don't get the coverage, they don't get the advocacy, they don't get the commitment. And I think that Marsha and Chris, they were the only people that were advocating for my brother. I mean, aside from
Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden.
Thank you. Aside from the DA investigators and the police department and the forensic specialists, I mean, everybody that lost careers over this, that were denigrated, that were, had their own death threats, that could never practice again because of what happened in this case. I'm grateful to them for being my brother and Nicole's voice. And what the defense did, I guess you're entitled to that, but they hit below the belt on so many occasions, as did the defense in the civil case. I mean, the disparaging comments they made about my brother in open court, it's disgusting what you go to win your
That's
case.
the thing, is like he was victimized all over again. But what I find interesting is, when I was searching online this morning, there's a whole thing like you're doing, you'll be on 2020 tonight. We know this, 10 o'clock, right?
Sure.
10 o'clock on ABC.
And what they're talking about is the documentaries that are coming out. Two of them. One is The Secret Tapes of the OJ Case, The Untold Story. That's on September 30th.
Right.
On LMN.
Okay.
And then A&E, OJ Speaks, The Hidden Tapes, October 1st at 9 p.m. Anyway, so, but but the ABC News story online was that Kris Jenner reflects.
So one of the tapes.
Everybody knows that Kris Jenner was Nicole's friend. And that she and Robert Kardashian, when they were together.
Right.
So he was on the other side defending, and she was on, sitting there. But they act like she's been sitting there. So give us your take on this.
I'm so annoyed with this. Kris Jenner, I get it. She's who she is today. She went to court one day, and I don't even know if it was for the full day.
And this was like months.
Yes, it was 9.5 months. I know when she was there because I never missed a day in the 9.5 months. And I'm not taking away her pain. I'm not taking away her relationship. But she was not an active member of that prosecutorial team. She was not an active member of the audience. Like, it's okay that she wasn't. But I feel like we are making such a concerted effort to infuse her into it now because it helps with ratings and it helps with her brand and her name. And it is what it is. Again, I can't control that, but I can tell you straight up that she was there for one day of the trial. And I almost want to say that it was there for the closing arguments, but I can't exactly be sure of the day. So that's how long she waited. Wow. It wasn't like in the beginning.
And the same thing with her daughters, the ones that were actually born.
Yeah, they talk about being in court all the time. I have no recollection of any of Kardashian's kids being there. Doesn't mean that they weren't, but I have no recollection of them specifically being there. It's always the killer's family and lots of people in the media, but I don't have any direct memory of them. But the tapes are Larry Schiller, Lawrence Schiller, whatever his name is. He was very...
Who is that?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
He was very enmeshed into the defense team, and he was like their confidant. And he was a media person at the time, maybe a director, producer. I don't know. I found it to be quite disgusting. And he followed them around, and he wrote a book with the killer. He did a video series with them, and apparently he has some tapes of conversations with he and Kardashian. I've never seen them. I don't know anything about them. That's that's airing.
So they didn't show you these tapes before you did?
I didn't. I learned about them
you're
online.
Involved with these.
Yeah, we participated in them. The deposition tapes are part of one of those documentaries. Again, I don't know which one. I can't remember. Those are deposition tapes from the civil case that we brought against the killer.
Have you heard those before?
Well, I was there for those depositions. I didn't. I wasn't in the room. I wasn't allowed to. I think I've seen bits and pieces, but quite frankly, I can't remember if I peed today, so I don't remember if I saw all those tapes. But those tapes are ours. Those are part of our family. And so we shared those so that people could see exactly what happened during the deposition. And those are two different sets of tapes.
And none of these involve Kris Jenner.
I don't know about the Kardashian stuff. I honestly have no idea.
Right.
She's a regular feature in the new series that's coming up.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have to go to break, but we have to talk about that. The new series. First of all, I want to know who you think should play you if you had your choice. But like the fact is that, they have an actress playing you, I think, in 1 or 2 episodes, and Kris Jenner
is featured in 10.
Is like a regular.
Yeah, she's a series regular.
So it's just, this is what happens when it comes to, entertainment, and it makes me want to take a shower every time I'm involved in it. But we're going to go to break, right, Kyle? We'll be right back with more Broadscast. Why should you become a Broadscast sponsor? Broad multimedia exposure, including radio, web, iTunes, YouTube, and social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
A quick, easy way to reach your target demo, women. Exclusive, limited time only, affordable introductory rates. Plus, 20 years experience in on-air and online marketing. We produce your one-of-a-kind creative in-house, saving you time and money.
For more on becoming a Broadscast sponsor, visit broadscast.com today.
You're listening to Broadscast with Kim Goldman and Jackie McDougall. They're huge in anywhere other than somewhere that you've been before.
Introduce us. Come on, Jarrett.
Bring us back.
Hi, I'm Jarrett, and this is Broadcast.
Broadscast.
This is I love saying Broadcast. Like, I think Broads being in Broadcast is hilarious.
Well, we don't expect world domination, but we do expect autocorrect
Why
to change
not?
broadcast to broadscast.
Well, I don't think that's asking for the moon and the stars, and I can show you how to make your phone do that.
Let's just
really?
tweet at the
What is
Pope
it?
and have him do it.
Oh, yes.
So should I
Go
I
for
jump
it.
in with another
Do your
question?
thing.
Okay, so again, a lot of people define you by this event in your life, right? And you're like, this happened, and I've done a million other things in the last 20 years. I'm curious how often do you think about this, and what do you think about when you do?
I think about my brother every day. I don't know any day that I can honestly say he hasn't popped in my mind, whether it's because my kid looks like him and his mannerisms are similar, or I look at myself and I'm like, oh, my brother would have had these same wrinkles, or whatever it might be. My brother is always very close to me. Do I think about the trial all the time? No. Do I think about the killer all the time? No. Do people see me for 10 seconds on TV doing a soundbite and think that I'm still angry and bitter and hostile and money hungry and all those things? No, but for those 10 seconds, I might be, because something may have happened that brought it to my attention. But, I live my life in the best way that I can in honor of my brother, but also to leave a legacy for myself and my kid. And, I run a charity working with teens, and I get to do this with Jackie, and I'm just me who happens to have a life that's on television.
Right. And it's amazing, though, because we'll be out somewhere and people recognize her all the time.
God.
Tell the story.
So we had the good fortune of being invited to a party in New York. It was the premiere of the Dateline season premiere, and we knew some friends, and so we invited us, and this man walked up to me with this messy gray hair, and he was had this bag, just like a
Bernie
mess.
Sanders.
Yeah, he was a mess, this guy. And he walked up to me, and he's staring at me, and he said, who do people tell you that you look like? I'm like, I don't know. This just got awkward. He's like, come on, who do people tell you? And I said, all right, Jennifer Garner, Jennifer Aniston, and Kim Goldman. He goes, yeah, I could see all three of those. God, and it I don't even know if it ever occurred.
And then did he ask you, if
He's
you,
like,
your name was
Nancy? And I'm like, no. He goes, phew. I'm like, okay, this is just weird now. Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah,
but the run-ins like that, with people, and
hilarious.
it's interesting. Remember we were at a concert in the park, and some cop was trying to talk to her.
But here again, shameless plug for my book, that the reason is because it's not, you don't get to just have a life. People think that they know you, and they it's been hard in my dating life. It's been hard in my professional life to do something that I get to stand alone. Even writing this book that has nothing to do with me, I'm still being told that I'm money hungry. I'm profiting off the killer's crime. That I'm an opportunist. There's always something negative, and I'm like, I'm trying to do good. I don't come into your world and tell you that as an insurance agent that you're making money off other people's tragedies. It's the same thing, right? It's the same
That's
thing.
an awesome comparison, yeah.
Right.
I guess something I never thought about with your story specifically is you were kind of on the periphery of all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your brother was friends with her, who was in a relationship with him, and you're so many levels removed, but you were thrust into this story because of your relationship to it, and that's an interesting dynamic, because we always look at, if we talk about Kris Jenner or whomever,
they push themselves into it.
They want to be in that. They're opportunists. And it's no. I actually wasn't involved at all. I was thrown into this. You guys showed up outside my house, So it's a
and that when you talk about with all these families, you have to find your way when you're immersed in grief and shock and denial and confusion, and how to navigate this, because there isn't anybody to come along. There's plenty of people that will come along and say, for $20,000, I will help you learn how to talk to the media when you've just lost your loved one. But for most of us, that doesn't happen, and we can't afford that anyway, and that's not what you're thinking about. But when you're put in this situation and there's people that come to you and say, I want to tell your story, I just want to hear everything you have to say, and you pour your heart out, and then they take what they want and they crumple you up and leave you behind, that no one explains and helps you through that process.
Right.
And that's when I say it can be really isolating, because there's so many people that will be your best friend for 10 seconds.
Right.
And you don't understand that's happening in that moment. On the flip side, there are plenty of people in the media that do right by victims and survivors and forward their, further their stories on their missions and come back to promote their causes and, their foundations. And I have plenty of people that I'm still very close with in the media that have been nothing short of respectful and sensitive and kind to me.
Right.
So I'm not painting
But it's
a
interesting
sweeping picture.
in your book, in Media Circus, how they talk, about how it's the hardest and yet comforting to have the public feel this pain for your loss too.
Well, and think about it, when you've been touched by evil, because someone else has taken your loved one from you in such a brutal way, to then get an opportunity to be surrounded by such kindness and love. It's a really leveling experience, and balanced experience. And again, I think that's where, you accept it and you love it. And then of course there's the trolls that will find their way in and are horrible to you. But for the most part, it is really just like an equalizer.
So who would you want to play you in this?
Oh my God, I don't
left.
even know the girl that is
say,
playing. I don't even know her name. It's been said to me. I don't know her name. I'm
I think
sorry,
it's Jennifer
young lady.
Aniston, right?
She
or Jennifer Garner.
Or Jennifer Garner.
I don't know. I don't think about it. It is weird that it's happening. It's uncomfortable, and I know that there's going to be a lot of creative license that's been attached to that, because it needs to be made for TV. But
have they even talked to you about it?
No, I'm not surprised they don't. Why would they consult with me? Then they'd have to.
Because then they'd have to
pay me.
Well,
God forbid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but Jarrett Hill, thank you
Yes,
for joining
Thank you for
us.
having me.
We always love having you on.
I love being here.
It's
been
nice
great.
to have you in person.
And thank you for not telling her when I almost ran you over in the crosswalk.
Oh my gosh, she almost hit me with her car outside, you guys. I mentioned it. Sorry.
Yeah, and I want to thank also our sponsor, Stark Social, who we absolutely love.
They do such good work on their
social
website.
marketing firm with an emphasis on small biz, startups, and nonprofit organizations, and they can service budgets of all shapes and sizes.
And I want to thank you, Jackie.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know, just because.
And make sure you go get
Have a great week. We will see you next time.